morning. Today we're going to cover the other half of what I've called leaky gut, the other half of the double-edged sword. The first edge is Candida, or the second. It doesn't matter because you can never separate these two. And it's the misunderstanding of these two, Candida and leaky gut, that leads to virtually be the foundational roots of virtually every chronic illness case that I've seen in 4 decades. So there may be an exception. I have not seen it. That's thousands of people over 4 decades. So that's why I say it's the root to almost all illness. Virtually everybody out there is addressing this through programs, and those programs are completely inadequate to address all the intricate things that go on inside of this. So to get a simple understanding of how all this progresses is vital for you to be able to regain your health. So I encourage you to stay tuned and listen in, because this one's going to be really huge. This is the first recording I'm going to do with a picture in the background. So there is value if you don't get everything you need to out of the podcast here. If you go to our YouTube page, that's the same name as the podcast, Your Health Reclaimed, you can see the pictures, and that will help, I think, you to understand this. So this is Your Health Reclaimed. I'm Dr. Brad Montagne, veteran functional medicine doctor, one who typically gets people well that have seen multiple docs over oftentimes decades, never got any help. When we get bulk of those healthy again. So let's jump into this. If we look at the inside of the gut, we have a fairly simple picture. The gut's about a 30-foot long tube in the average adult. The bottom 5 feet on average is the colon. The mouth and throat take up usually probably about 16 inches. The stomach, depends on which way you want to measure it, maybe 12. And everything in between that first, just a little more than 2 feet, and the last 5 feet is a small intestine. It's got 3 different sections in it. We each have different primary functions in it, and everything works together to allow us to be able to digest and process all the things we take in, food, drink, and all that. When we look at that tube, from the stomach down, the lining of that is coated with what we call microvilli. And if you hold your hand up in front of your face, your fingers represent the microvilli. Those microvilli increase the surface area of the gut wall about 400 times. So the surface area of the gut, if it was smooth, would be about 6 square feet. If we take that and add the microvilli, it's the size of a tennis court. So it's huge on what it does. Those fingers representing the microvilli, they secrete a mucus. That mucus lubricates the entire internal lining of the gut, adds fluid to the foods we've ingested as they go down. And it's also the place where the bulk of our microbes live, is in that mucosal lining. That mucus caps over the top of the microvilli. And when you look at an electron microscope, it makes it pretty clear that the food never touches the microvilli, all the interactions with the microbes, and the microbes aid in the digestion. They bring the nutrients back and forth into the interaction of the microvilli and release that into the mucus so that can be absorbed. We got the exact same process going on in the soil with all the nutrients in the soil for all the plant matter. So it's always interesting to me how uniquely and universally all the systems in all life are designed the same. So there's microbes in the soil that digest the nutrients in the soil, hand them to the plants. There's microbes inside of our gut that digest our food and hand it to the microvilli to absorb it. But it's critical to note here, those microbes in the soil are not similar to the microbes in your gut. Not similar at all. The microbes in the gut won't work in the soil, and the microbes in the soil won't work in the gut. There's a lot of people promoting soil-based organism products. As far as that goes, the only microbes that actually grow inside of the gut are the ones that aren't numbered. And the research proves they actually grow there. All the food sources last a maximum of 5 hours. Most of them are dead in less than 3. So that's an overview of the lining of the gut. Now, if you take your fists and you push them together really close, that's how tight all the cells that line the gut lining are. That gut lining is only one cell layer thick. It's not like our skin with multiple layers. It's only one cell layer thick. And if you take your fingers and you interlock those like this, you can really pull out with all your might, and it's not hard to hold your fingers together. That represents the tight junctions that hold all the cells that line the gut together. So that the food, the nutrients that get absorbed in the gut should have to pass through the cells, not in between them. And that junction that holds those cells together is called the tight junction. There's a few proteins in there, 2 different classes, occludins and claudins. Zonulin is one of the most publicized of those. And essentially what those proteins do is they act like Velcro to stick these cells together. Normally, in a healthy environment, those tight junctions should just be locked, and food should have to go through the cells themselves instead of between them. But there's an exception to that. And the picture that I have up is from the Atlantic Medical Center, trying to describe what they know happens with celiac disease. It's my own belief when we looked at all the different mechanisms that can create Candida, and along with Candida, leaky gut always occurs at the same time. And it doesn't matter which one's first, because they're going to always be together. When you look at all the different mechanisms, it can't be a different mechanism for everyone. We have to have a very similar response. And my own belief is that this mechanism that the Atlantic Medical Centers put together is a mechanism that creates the whole thing. So they just wrote this for gluten causing celiac, but I've seen a multitude of cases of celiac that are caused not just by gluten, but a host of other factors. So that can be medications, that can be other food intolerances, that can be chronic stress, that can be steroids, it can be a whole bunch of different mechanisms. We covered that in the last episode. So when we look at what goes on with the gluten, it actually creates an inflammatory reaction in the gut lining. And that inflammatory reaction looses that interlocking, finger-locking grip. So those cells just kind of start to slide apart, and things can start to slip in between the cells instead of through them. So this is the beginning and the early stages of leaky gut. When it leaks through, those cells start to release interleukins, which is a chemical signal that warns of something's coming through that shouldn't be able to. So that chemical signal, it starts to signal we've got it's pretty close to 3/4 of the immune system in the gut wall. When way back when I was in grad school, it was promoted as more than half. Now they know it's 70 to 80% of the immune system. It's all there because this is the primary route that infective and toxic things are going to come into the body system. So it's poised there to protect us because this is the primary route of all the attacks that are going to come through. So as these tight junctions, they start to open up, it starts to allow more and more and more of these inflammatory products through. In the Atlantic Medical Center representation here, they believe that's just gluten. My own clinical experience has proved that's not the case. Which, by the way, the medical institution doesn't believe that you can cure celiac disease. Virtually every patient I've worked with for 4 decades has it to some degree. And we've been able to resolve virtually every case but one. And the one case we haven't been able to resolve, they haven't been able to clean up the influx of the inflammatory intake enough for the person to be able to clear it. So it's not because we haven't done our job, it's because they haven't been able to manage what's going on with this. And that's the only case in 4 decades. So, and it's something we're still working with. So we look at this, these chemical signals called interleukins, they signal these immune cells that are in the gut lining to come to the aid. And those immune cells, they go and they try and plug the holes. But they can't because they can't form a tight junction. So these inflammatory products, they start pouring through, and the more they pour through, the worse the problem becomes. As more pouring through, more chemicals get released from the cells that line the gut to try and modify what's coming through. In the case of glutens, it will expand those out so that those modified glutens can be exposed to the different components of the immune system to try and deal with and attack this. Now, I've said before, and I'll repeat it here, the immune system is a poor detoxifier. It's not its job. The job of detoxification happens in 4 different organs. The gut lining, which is now being compromised. The gut flora, which is also being compromised with whatever's creating this inflammatory response. It's affecting both the gut microbial lining, the flora, and the mucosal cells, the lining of the gut, doing both at the same time. So that's increasing the leaking. And whatever started the problem is now accelerated by different fragments inside of the gut lining, like LPS. Those are lipopolysaccharides. For people who want to know what that means, it's not that important, but those are the cell walls of some of the microbes that live inside of the gut. Those are super antigens that will create hyperinflammatory autoimmune responses. Those start to leak through the leaks. All these inflammatory byproducts start to pour through these leaking areas of the gut. The more they do, the more inflammation that goes on. These complexes that form underneath the lining of the gut start to alarm the immune system, and it starts calling other cells to come and help. The T helper cells, those generally help assist whatever immune function is needed, goes on. They come, they start attaching to this complex. In the case of a modified gluten, it starts to expose the antigens. Those are the identification markings of the gluten to other immune cells. If it's the LPS, it's going to expose the LPS. If it's microbes, it can expose the microbes. If it's medications, it can expose the medications. If it's other food intolerances, it can expose those. We got the same mechanism going on with all this stuff. And it's like a flower opening up, and the T helper cells expose every aspect of every petal and every part inside of that flower. So as that happens, the T killer cells come to try and kill this. But if it's a chemical, it can't kill it. It'll engulf it. It'll try and modify it. But as I said before, the immune cells, even the T killer cells, they have the ability to dissolve microbes, but they don't have the ability to run down the 2 phases of detoxification. They can't run down phase 1. There's 5 different pathways in phase 1 that makes things free radicals. They're more toxic than what came in the first place. And it can't run things through the process of phase 2. There's 6 different pathways of phase 2 that take those free radicals, super toxic byproducts of phase 1, make them water soluble so they can be excreted and calm down. It can't do either one of those. You can only try and engulf it, which only inflames and enrages the T killer cells. Then the beta cells come in. Those are our immune cells that create antibodies. They come in and they start to create antibodies against whatever's invading, whatever that toxin is. And those antibodies, they go and they attack every place where those toxins are. Well, since those toxins are coming through those cells that line the gut, those cells have a fair amount of those toxins in them. And our immune system starts to attack the toxic cells of our gut lining. And it makes these places where these tight junctions have been loose, it blows holes through the cells. There's an electron micrograph picture of those holes blowing in the cells that I have that I'm not going to try and show here, but it's very, very obvious when you see that. You're seeing the inside of the cells just opening up into the gut lumen from electron micrograph. So this is the other half of that double-edged sword. So we have this process going on along with the destruction of the microbial lining of the gut flora, allowing pathogens to grow. And it just accelerates this whole toxic nightmare and allows it to go systemic. So this is Your Health Reclaimed. I'm Dr. Brad Montagne, veteran functional medicine doctor. And we need to lay these two foundations so you can understand how complex all these things are and what really needs to be addressed to get yourself well. So we look at this, we have a normal gut lining with these tight junctions that hold everything together. All the nutrients inside of the gut should go through the cells, but when the tight junctions open, it allows toxins to come in between those cells. Anything that's inflammatory can open up those tight junctions. That creates a cascade of reactions. You got a release of chemicals that call the immune system to come, and the immune system tries to plug the leaks. It can't do it. More chemicals are released to try and expose these things that have come through. The T helper cells come in and present those antigens, those markers of whatever's causing all this inflammation. So the T killer cells can try and deal with those. The T killer cells can't do the detox issues. So the beta cells are called. The beta cells come in, create antibodies, and the antibodies go to attack every place where these antigens, these toxins are coming through, and that accelerates the destruction of the gut wall, the gut mucosa, because those toxins are embedded there. So this is critical for you to know. I encourage you, subscribe to our channel. We're talking about things that other people don't talk about. Share this with people. Put some reviews out there and help us get some traction in this so we can keep sharing all these pearls to everybody. We release these every Monday and Thursday. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.